1 million French fans flood the streets of Paris in a celebration unlike anything the country has ever seen. The impossible has just happened. For the first time in history, France is the world champion. At the heart of this glory stands the son of Algerian immigrants, a football genius who carried the hopes of an entire nation. But how did a boy from the rough outskirts of Marseille become the maestro who led this perfect symphony? And how did a country with such a complicated relationship with football finally reach the pinnacle of the sport? This isn't just the story of France's greatest football triumph. This is the story of the man who led them to the top of the world. This is the story of Zinedine Zidane. Zinedine Yazid Zidane was born on June 23, 1972, in La Castellane, one of the poorest neighborhoods in Marseille. His father, Smail, had fled war and poverty in Algeria, chasing the dream of a better life in France. But what he found was rejection, a country that looked down on his children before they ever had a chance. Zizou grew up in a tough environment where football was his only escape. A dusty field and a worn-out ball became the sanctuary for a rare talent that screamed quietly to be heard. At 14, he left behind the harsh outskirts of Marseille to take a chance at the modest AS Cons. Far from his family, the ball was all he had, and with it, Zizou began writing his story. By 17, he made his professional debut, quiet, reserved, but with the ball at his feet, the shy boy transformed. He didn't need to speak. Football spoke for him. His vision for someone so young was unreal. In 1991, he led Little Cannes to an unprecedented achievement, qualifying for the UEFA Cup. It was remarkable, but just the beginning. Cannes was too small for the talent that was blooming. In 1992, at age 20, came the next step. Girondins de Bordeaux, more structure, more visibility, and more pressure. And alongside Dugarry and Lizarazu, he found something else, a team that started believing in the same dream. In Bordeaux, that kid from the outskirts became the star. His moves felt choreographed. He saw the game in slow motion. While others ran, Zidane thought and moved with elegance, calm and mastery. And that kind of football, graceful and deliberate, led him in August of 1994, at just 22 years old, to wear the French national jersey for the very first time. But this wasn't just any debut. Zidane stepped onto the pitch in the 63rd minute, with France trailing 2-0. And in just a matter of minutes, everything changed. He didn't just save France from defeat by scoring 2 unforgettable goals. He announced himself to the world. France had found something it desperately needed: a new hope, a new maestro, and the beginning of a new era. The 1995-96 season with Bordeaux was a special one for Zidane.
Who were capable of doing something like that. Genius.
Thanks to his brilliance, Bordeaux made it all the way to the UEFA Cup final against the mighty Bayern Munich. They didn't win, but that final put Zizou on the radar of Europe's top clubs. And one of those clubs didn't waste any time. In 1996, Juventus, blown away by what they'd seen, signed the rising star. But the transition to Italian football wasn't easy. The game there was different, tougher, more tactical, more demanding. In the early months, Zidane struggled. The training was intense, the expectations relentless, and the weight of wearing one of Europe's biggest jerseys was heavy. People began to doubt. But as always in Zizou's life, when the doubts came, football answered for him.
It's Zinedine Zidane here.
In the 1996-97 season, he led Juve to the Serie A title and the Champions League final. The next year, another league title and yet another European final. He wasn't just part of the team, he was the conductor, an artist among warriors. His ball control mesmerized, his dribbles broke down defenses, his passes, laser precise, sliced through the pitch like he had eyes in the back of his head. Zidane didn't just play football, he painted moving masterpieces, and as he enchanted Europe wearing the black and white of Juventus, something deeper began to stir within him. A calling, something bigger, more personal. France, the country that had taken in his immigrant parents, the country that had doubted him, underestimated him, but also the place where he rose. Now the national team needed him. Something monumental was on the horizon. The 1998 World Cup in France. And this time, it wasn't just about football, it was personal. To truly grasp the weight of what happened in 1998, we need to rewind a bit. France and football have always had a complicated relationship, one of passion but also heartbreak. In 1998, Zinedine Zidane arrived at his very first World Cup, and it wasn't just any tournament. It was in France, at home. The entire country was holding its breath. The streets were dressed in blue, white and red. Flags hung from windows, bars were packed. But behind the excitement, there were old wounds, and a dream the nation had never managed to reach. France had never won a World Cup. They had come close, runners-up in 1958 with Just Fontaine, and semi-finalists twice more, but the title had always slipped through their fingers. Beyond that, the relationship between the national team and the French people had never been easy. There was constant distrust, frequent disappointments. Many fans carried more frustration than hope. And there was another layer, quieter, more sensitive. The 1998 team was a reflection of a France still struggling to accept its own diversity. Zidane, son of Algerian immigrants, Thuram, born in Guadeloupe, Desailly from Ghana, Djorkaeff with Armenian and Polish roots. A team that was diverse, born from the suburbs, from the outskirts, from immigration. To some, they didn't represent the traditional France. To others, they were the true face of modern France. That World Cup wasn't just about football, it was a chance for national reconciliation, a chance to prove that unity, even among differences, could create something extraordinary, to show the world that France could win, on the field, and beyond it. And for Zidane, it was more than just a sporting mission. It was personal. It was about belonging, about proving, once again, that he deserved to be there. But the pressure was immense. The eyes of the world were fixed on him. And beyond all that, Zidane was about to face one of the greatest battles of his career. One that had haunted him for years. Something that could cost him everything, his temper on the pitch. At the start of the tournament, even as France cruised past South Africa, Zidane failed to shine the way everyone had hoped. And the media started to question, was he crumbling under the pressure? Maybe France's greatest hope wouldn't be able to deliver when it mattered most. Then came Saudi Arabia. Zidane was still chasing his moment. But in a rough physical match, the unthinkable happened. Provoked the entire game, Zidane snapped. In the 70th minute, caught in a moment of pure fury, he stomped on a fallen opponent. The stadium froze. The dream, the glory, the destiny of a nation, now hung by a thread. Without the slightest hesitation, the referee brandished the red card. In one brutal, irreversible moment, Zidane's world came crashing down. The silence in the stadium was deafening. This wasn't just a red card, it was the collapse of a nation's dream unfolding in real time. Zidane was handed a 2-match suspension. He would only return in the quarter-finals if France made it that far. If not, his World Cup was over. And in that instant, the old criticisms resurfaced. Could a hot-blooded player like Zidane really lead a nation? In the round of 16, France faced Paraguay. It was a tense, suffocating battle. Without Zidane, France struggled to find a way forward. The minutes dragged into extra time, every second heavier than the last. From the stands, Zidane watched, tormented. He could barely look. The guilt was eating him alive. He knew if France fell here, the blame would be his to bear. But then, in extra time, salvation, Laurent Blanc struck the golden goal. France survived, and with it, so did Zidane's hopes. His story wasn't over, not yet. But the path to redemption was about to get even harder. Italy, giants like Del Piero and Maldini standing in the way. Another battle with no goals, another march into extra time. This time, it would go to penalties. The tension was unbearable, every shot a heartbeat for 60 million souls. And then a break. Di Biagio struck the crossbar. France survives, against all odds. They reach the semi-final. But fate wasn't done testing them. Next, Croatia, the surprise of the tournament, a team that had just taken down Germany. And once again, the script was cruel. Davor Šuker opens the scoring. The French dream begins to slip away. And then the impossible. Lilian Thuram, a defender who had never scored for France in 40 appearances, rose to the moment. Once, then again. A comeback for the ages. France are in the World Cup final. But for Zidane, there was still one final chapter to be written, the most important of all, because standing between him and immortality was the greatest challenge yet. Brazil, the reigning world champions, led by Ronaldo, the phenomenon, a player who seemed unstoppable, a force of nature with 4 goals already in the tournament. It was a true David versus Goliath battle. All of France held its breath. An entire nation placed its hope in Zinedine Zidane. Two headers that changed the course of French football forever. 2 moments that transcended the game and touched the very soul of a nation. And nothing would ever compare to that summer of 1998. A summer when a football genius, the son of Algerian immigrants, stepped onto the world's biggest stage and proved he belonged. A summer when redemption was found and history was rewritten. when an entire country realized that its greatest strength was not in sameness, but in its diversity. France hadn't just won their first World Cup, they had claimed something far greater, a new way of seeing themselves, a new sense of belonging, a new confidence that would echo through generations. The son of immigrants who united a fractured nation, the man who, in seeking redemption, rose beyond the sport and found eternal glory.